He was a man who lived his life in a rhythm that never seemed to stop. Every morning he woke up at the same hour, had his coffee in silence, and left for work. Always focused, always on time. He had a big house, a big office, and big responsibilities. Everything about him showed success, but it also showed distance. His life was busy. His mind was always racing with meetings, decisions, and deadlines. And in the midst of all this, there was someone who quietly took care of his life outside of work. She was his maid, a woman who had been with him for years. She cleaned his house, prepared his meals, and made sure everything was in order before he returned from long workdays. She was not just a helper. She was a part of the background of his life. He knew her name, of course. He knew where she worked and the hours she kept. But beyond that, he had never asked much. He never asked how she spent her evenings, how her family was, or what she struggled with. In his busy life, there was little room for such questions, and in her quiet life, there was little room for complaints. Mornings were routine. She would arrive early, often before the sun was up. Her steps were careful, measured, making sure she did not wake anyone. She worked quickly with practiced hands. The floors sparkled after she swept them. The kitchen smelled clean and ready. She had a way of moving through the house that made it feel alive, but never chaotic. He often noticed this from a distance, but never thought too deeply about it. It was just how things were. One morning he watched her as she went about her tasks. She was tired, more than usual. Her shoulders were stiff, and her movements were slower than normal. He paused for a moment, coffee in hand, and wondered briefly if she was feeling unwell. But the thought was fleeting. He had a meeting to attend, and there was a pile of work waiting for him. He left the house without another word, leaving her to finish her chores in silence. What he did not know was that the tiredness, he noticed, was not just from her morning work. Her life outside of his house was not easy. She had responsibilities that weighed heavily on her. She took care of her younger siblings because her parents were far away and unable to help. She managed bills that seemed to multiply despite her careful planning. And she worked 2 or 3 other small jobs just to make ends meet. Each day she carried more than just cleaning supplies and laundry. She carried worries, fatigue, and the weight of her family's survival. Despite all this, she never complained, never let her stress show when she was inside the house. She smiled quietly, nodded politely, and worked diligently. Her dignity was in her silence, her strength in her patience. She had learned early that life was harder if she asked too much, and easier if she gave what she could and kept moving forward. Days passed in this rhythm, focused on his meetings, calls, and projects. She focused on making the house a home, even if he rarely noticed the effort it took. It was a life of parallel paths that rarely intersected beyond the necessary interactions. He would nod at her, sometimes ask for a report on chores, and she would answer politely, never overstepping, never complaining. He often thought he was generous. He paid her well, gave her time off occasionally, and treated her with basic respect. But generosity, he was about to learn, was more than money or polite words. True generosity was understanding, noticing, and caring when no one was watching. And that lesson was coming in a way he never expected. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, he decided to take a different route home. It was a street he rarely walked down, lined with small shops and quiet corners. He enjoyed these rare moments of calm, where the sounds of traffic and office phones were replaced by distant chatter and the rustling of leaves. The street was familiar, but not often explored. That night, he walked slowly, allowing his mind to wander from work worries. As he turned a corner, something caught his eye. At first he thought it was just a shadow, a passerby resting. But as he got closer, his heart tightened. There, on the cold, hard sidewalk, was his maid. She was curled up, wrapped in a thin blanket that barely kept out the chill. Her eyes were closed and her breathing was quiet, almost peaceful, yet deeply fragile. The sight was shocking. Had never mentioned being homeless or struggling so severely. She had never shown this side of her life. And yet here she was, sleeping on the street, like someone who had nowhere to go. For a moment he froze. He could not move. The world around him seemed to disappear. The cars passed without notice. The streetlights blurred, and all he could focus on was her. He remembered her hands sweeping his floors, her careful way of preparing his meals, her quiet smiles in the mornings. He had always seen her as part of the furniture, part of the background. But now she was human, vulnerable, and exposed in a way he had never imagined. He knelt beside her, unsure of what to say or do. His first instinct was panic, then guilt, and then a deep, burning sadness. How had he not noticed? How had he ignored the signs of fatigue, the occasional dark circles under her eyes, the quiet moments when she seemed lost in thought? He realized painfully that he had been blind to her life beyond the walls of his house. And now, seeing her here, he understood the depth of her struggle. Slowly, he reached out and touched her shoulder. She stirred, opening her eyes in surprise and confusion. For a brief moment, she looked at him as if she were unsure whether to trust him, whether this was real. Then recognition dawned, and her eyes widened. She tried to sit up quickly, embarrassed, but he gently stopped her. There was no anger in his voice, no judgment, only concern. He asked softly, "Why are you here? Why are you sleeping on the sidewalk?" She hesitated, biting her lip, ashamed of revealing her circumstances. But the trust she had built over the years, even in silence, allowed her to speak. She told him about her family, her financial struggles, and the exhaustion from working multiple jobs. Each word was heavy, filled with the weight of years of silent endurance. He listened, not interrupting, letting her speak until she had nothing left to say. His heart ached with every detail, every hardship she revealed. He realized how little he had known, how little he had asked, and how easily he had taken her for granted. The image of her sleeping on the cold sidewalk would remain with him forever, a stark reminder of the invisible lives around him, of the struggles hidden behind polite smiles. Finally, he spoke, offering what help he could, not as an employer, not as a manager, but as a human being who had just seen the truth. He offered her food, shelter for the night, and a plan to support her beyond the immediate crisis. Her eyes filled with tears, not from pity, but from relief. Someone had finally seen her, truly seen her, and cared. That night, he walked her home, carrying a quiet understanding that money alone was never enough. Respect, care, and attention mattered more. He had learned that the simplest acts of noticing, listening, and helping could change a life in ways wealth never could. And for the first time in years, he felt a connection that went beyond his routine, beyond his office walls, into the very human experience of empathy, kindness, and shared humanity. The next morning, he could not stop thinking about what he had seen the night before. The image of her curled up on the cold sidewalk, the thin blanket barely covering her, kept appearing in his mind. He had always thought of her as someone who quietly handled the house, someone who was part of the background of his life. But now he saw her differently. She was not just a helper. She was a person with struggles, worries, and a life outside his house that he had never understood. He went to work as usual, but everything felt different. The meetings seemed less important, the reports less pressing. His thoughts kept drifting to her, wondering how she had managed to go through life like this without him noticing. He realized that he had been blind to so much, assuming that because someone worked for him, they were okay, that their life was manageable. He had never asked, never cared enough to notice the details. Meanwhile, she woke up that morning tired but with a strange sense of relief. The previous night had been harsh, but someone had finally seen her. She felt a mix of gratitude and fear, gratitude for his help, fear of what would happen next. She had kept her struggles private for so long, used to managing on her own, that accepting help felt both relieving and strange. She wondered if he would treat her differently at work, if he would pity her, or if things would return to the normal routine, as if nothing had happened. When she arrived at the house, she noticed a difference. He greeted her with a soft smile, something he had never done before. There was no harshness, no distant attitude, only a quiet acknowledgement that he understood more than he had before. She felt a bit more at ease, sensing that this was not a momentary act of charity, but a genuine care from him. They continued their morning chores, but the atmosphere was different. He watched her quietly, noticing the effort in her movements, the way her eyes carried both determination and fatigue. He realized he had been missing these details for years, It was a small awakening, but a powerful one. He understood that his life had been insulated, protected by walls of routine and responsibility, while her life had been filled with unseen struggles. Later in the day, he decided to speak with her privately. He asked her gently about her family and her life outside work. At first, she was hesitant, unsure if it was appropriate to share so much with him. But he spoke with patience and understanding, giving her space to open up. She told him about her siblings, about the long hours she worked in other jobs, and about the financial burdens she carried. Each word painted a picture of resilience, endurance, and quiet bravery. She had survived hardships that he could not have imagined. Managing to provide for her family while still performing her duties diligently in his house, he listened carefully, absorbing every detail, feeling a mix of admiration and guilt. He realized that his life of comfort and routine had shielded him from the realities of others. He had assumed that paying someone for their work was enough, that kindness meant fairness in wages and occasional time off. But true kindness, he now understood, meant seeing the whole person, recognizing their struggles, and being willing to help beyond the surface level. Throughout the day, he found himself thinking about ways to support her. He did not want to overstep or make her feel uncomfortable, but he wanted to do something meaningful. He considered practical solutions, helping her find better living arrangements, assisting with her family's needs, and providing resources that could ease her burdens. It was not about creating dependence, but about offering support that would allow her to live with dignity and security. That afternoon, he walked through the neighborhood where he had found her. He noticed the small shops, the quiet corners, and the people who seemed to live with the same struggles she had described. The world felt larger and more complex than he had imagined. He realized that many people around him were carrying hidden burdens, living lives that went unnoticed by those who were focused on their own routines. It was a humbling and eye-opening experience, one that changed the way he saw the world. When he returned home, he invited her to sit with him over tea. He wanted to continue their conversation, to listen more, and to understand better. She was surprised but accepted, feeling a sense of trust and respect. They spoke quietly, sharing stories of challenges and small victories. He learned about her childhood, her dreams, and her hopes for the future. She learned that he was capable of understanding, empathy, and care beyond his role as an employer. As the days passed, he began to make small changes. He offered flexible hours, helped with some of her family responsibilities, created a space where she felt comfortable sharing her thoughts and concerns. The dynamic between them shifted from a formal employer-employee relationship to one of mutual respect and understanding. He realized that true leadership and generosity involved more than giving commands or paying wages. It involved seeing the humanity in others and responding with compassion. He also started to notice the little things he'd overlooked before: the weariness in her eyes on certain days, the subtle signs of struggle, the moments when she seemed quiet or distracted. He learned to ask gently, to listen patiently, and to act with thoughtfulness. Each small act of care strengthened their connection and created a sense of trust that had never existed before. The experience also changed his perspective on life. He began to appreciate the resilience of people who worked quietly, often without recognition. He understood that success was not just about wealth or status, but about the ability to notice and support those around him. He felt a growing responsibility to use his resources and position to make a positive impact, not just in his immediate environment, but in the broader community as well. By the end of the week, he had taken steps to ensure that she had a safer place to sleep, assistance with her other responsibilities, and the reassurance that she could rely on him without fear of judgment. She continued her work in his house, but now with a sense of dignity restored and a deeper trust in him. The silent strength she had always carried was now matched by the quiet support he offered, creating a bond that was unspoken but deeply felt. He reflected on the changes within himself. The incident on the sidewalk had been a turning point, a moment that forced him to see beyond the surface, to understand the lives of others, and to act with genuine compassion. He realized that life was richer and more meaningful when one paid attention to the struggles and triumphs of those around them. It was a lesson he would carry forward, shaping not only his interactions with her, but also with everyone in his life. Through this experience, he learned that human connection is fragile, yet powerful. Small gestures of care, moments of listening, and acts of empathy can transform relationships and restore dignity. The sight of her sleeping on the sidewalk had been a jarring awakening, but it had also been an opportunity to grow, to change, and to embrace the humanity that often goes unnoticed in the rush of daily life. And in that awareness, he found a deeper sense of purpose, one that would guide his actions for years to come. Over the next few days, he noticed small changes in her demeanor. She seemed more relaxed, more comfortable, and a little lighter in her step. It was subtle, but he could tell she no longer carried the same tension in her shoulders or the constant worry in her eyes. It reminded him of how much impact a little care and attention could have. It was not about money alone or providing temporary solutions. It was about showing that someone truly cared, that she was not invisible. He decided to take more concrete steps to help her beyond his house. He asked gentle questions about her family and daily life, learning more about the struggles she faced at home. She told him about her siblings, her responsibilities, and the small jobs she had to do to make ends meet. Each story revealed the depth of her resilience, strength she carried quietly, and the sacrifices she made without complaint. He could not help but feel a mix of admiration and regret. Admiration for her courage, and regret for never noticing sooner. One day, he decided to visit her family with her permission. He wanted to see the environment she came from and understand better what she was facing. Walking into the small, modest home, he was struck by how much responsibility she had shouldered. Her siblings were young, dependent, and trusting. The house was simple, but clean, a testament to her hard work. He felt an immediate urge to help, to offer support in ways that could make a real difference. He provided practical assistance first. He helped arrange safe and stable living conditions, ensuring that she and her siblings would have a secure place to stay. He connected her with resources that could help with her education and small financial aid programs. He made sure that the support was discreet, respectful, and empowering, so she would not feel diminished or patronized. It was important to him that she felt in control of her life, the guidance and help available when needed. Back at his house, their relationship continued to change. He was no longer just her employer. He became a mentor and a friend, someone who listened, observed, and respected her boundaries. She appreciated the difference, feeling safe to share concerns and challenges without fear of judgment. There was a new level of trust between them, built not on authority or obligation, but on empathy and understanding. He also started to notice things in his daily life that he had overlooked before. The people working quietly behind the scenes, the delivery personnel, the cleaners, and others who supported his lifestyle. Of them had lives, struggles, and stories. He realized that he had been living in a bubble, focusing on his own success, without truly noticing the human beings around him. This awareness changed how he interacted with everyone, not just her. He became more patient, more understanding, and more willing to help in ways that went beyond superficial gestures. One evening, he invited her to sit down and share ideas about her own future. He wanted her to dream beyond immediate survival, to consider education, skill development, or small projects she could manage. At first, she was hesitant, used to thinking only about daily survival. But with encouragement, she began to imagine a future that was not just about struggle. They discussed small steps she could take, ways he could support her goals, and how she could balance responsibilities while pursuing her dreams. It was a conversation that opened new possibilities. Showing her that life could be more than just hardship, the experience also impacted him personally. He realized how little he had understood about empathy and action. He had always believed that success meant providing well for others, but now he saw that true care was about attention, respect, and meaningful engagement. It was about listening without interruption, observing without judgment, and acting without expecting recognition. The change in him was quiet but profound, a shift in perspective that affected all areas of his life. As time passed, he also shared some of her story with trusted friends and colleagues, not to boast, but to inspire awareness. He wanted others to understand the importance of noticing, listening, and helping when someone was struggling. The response was positive, with many people acknowledging that they, too, had overlooked those around them. Her story became a quiet example of resilience, courage, and the transformative power of genuine kindness. He continued to make small adjustments in his home and work environment. He encouraged breaks, allowed flexible hours, and created spaces where she could rest when needed. He paid attention to details he had ignored before: the way she handled tasks, her energy levels, and her emotional state. Every change was done respectfully, carefully, and thoughtfully, without overwhelming her or making her feel dependent. It was about balance, understanding, and dignity. One afternoon, while she was resting after completing chores, he walked by and simply said, "You are important. I see everything you do." The words were simple, but they carried weight. It was not a lecture, a command, or a superficial compliment. It was a recognition of her humanity, her effort, and her endurance. She smiled quietly, a mix of gratitude and relief, knowing that someone finally saw her, not just as a worker, but as a person. He also began to reflect on the broader world, the many others who, like her, faced invisible struggles. He thought about his role, the resources he had, and the ways he could help more people without drawing attention. He realized that true impact often came from quiet actions, consistent support, and genuine care. It was not about public recognition, social media posts, or accolades. It was about the lives touched, the dignity restored, and the hope inspired. In his personal life, he felt more connected to the community around him. The experience with her became a lens through which he saw people differently, more deeply. He noticed kindness, resilience, and struggle everywhere. He began to appreciate moments of human connection, however small, and recognize the power of attention and empathy. It was a profound shift, subtle yet enduring, shaping his interactions, decisions, and relationships in meaningful ways. Through it all, she continued to work diligently, but now with a renewed sense of hope and security. She felt valued, respected, and supported. The trust between them grew, not through words alone, but through consistent, meaningful actions. Their relationship became an example of how understanding, patience, and care could transform a bond from transactional to deeply human. One evening, he asked her to share her ideas for her own growth. They spoke about courses she could take, skills she could develop, and small steps toward a more independent future. She was hesitant at first, unsure of what was possible, but he encouraged her gently. They made small, achievable plans together, focusing on her strengths and aspirations. It was a conversation that inspired her to dream beyond mere survival, to imagine a life where she could thrive. This part of their journey highlighted the power of noticing, listening, and acting. Small acts of care had the potential to change not just her life, but his life and the lives of others around them. He realized that true generosity and empathy were not about grand gestures, but about consistent, thoughtful actions that respected the dignity and humanity of others. By the end of the week, he had created a stable, supportive environment for her. She continued her work with renewed energy and a sense of pride. He had learned lessons in empathy, patience, and the importance of understanding the struggles of those around him. And quietly, without fanfare or recognition, their lives had shifted, becoming richer, more connected, and deeply human in ways that neither had expected. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between them grew stronger. It was no longer just an employer and a maid. It had become a connection built on trust, respect, and genuine concern. He continued to support her in practical ways, helping with her family, her daily responsibilities, and her dreams for the future. She continued to work diligently, but now with a sense of security and dignity that had been missing for so long. One morning, decided to take her to a local community center. The center offered programs for skill development, financial literacy, and small business guidance. He wanted her to explore options she had never considered before, to see that there was more to life than daily survival. She was hesitant at first, unsure if she belonged there or if it would be useful. But he encouraged her gently, explaining that she deserved opportunities to grow and thrive. At the center, she met other women with similar stories. They shared experiences, challenges, and dreams. Listening to their stories, she realized she was not alone in her struggles. She saw hope in their resilience, inspiration in their determination. He watched quietly, feeling proud that she was taking steps toward a brighter future. He understood that true support sometimes meant stepping back and allowing someone to grow on their own while providing guidance when needed. Word of their story began to spread quietly. A neighbor had seen him helping her, offering support and care. Social media picked up snippets of the story, highlighting his compassion and her resilience. The response was overwhelming. People were inspired by the genuine kindness, by the way he had noticed her struggle and acted without seeking recognition. The story went viral, but he remained humble. He did not seek praise. He simply wanted to make a meaningful difference in her life. The publicity brought more than attention. It brought opportunities. Local organizations reached out, offering resources for her education and skill development. He helped coordinate these opportunities, ensuring they aligned with her goals and needs. She began attending workshops, learning new skills, and gaining confidence in her abilities. Each step forward was small but significant, a sign that her life was slowly transforming. At home, the atmosphere changed as well. He became more attentive to everyone in his household, noticing small signs of struggle or discomfort. He encouraged open communication, listening carefully, and offering help when needed. The lesson he learned from her experience expanded beyond a single person. It became a guiding principle for how he interacted with others. He realized that kindness and empathy were not just personal virtues. They were practices that could change environments and communities. One afternoon, he and she sat together in the garden. The air was warm, filled with the scent of flowers and the quiet sounds of birds. They spoke about her future, her dreams, and the possibilities that had opened up. She shared ideas she had never voiced before, plans for small projects, ways she could help her family while pursuing her own growth. He listened attentively, offering guidance when asked, but allowing her the space to make decisions. It was a partnership built on mutual respect, where her voice mattered as much as his resources. As she progressed, he also began to reflect on his own life. The experience had shifted his perspective, teaching him the value of seeing others fully and responding with compassion. He realized that success was not measured by wealth or status alone, but by the impact one could have on the lives of others. He understood that true leadership involved empathy, attention, and action. It's not just authority or power. The community noticed the change as well. People began to recognize the small acts of care and respect he showed daily. He encouraged his friends and colleagues to pay attention to those around them, to listen, observe, and support where possible. His example inspired others to act with kindness, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond the initial incident. What had started as a quiet act of care for one person became a lesson for many. Showing the power of genuine empathy and understanding, she also began to give back in small ways. Inspired by the support she had received, she volunteered at the community center, helping other women who faced challenges similar to hers. She shared her story, her struggles, and her progress, offering hope and encouragement. Her resilience became a source of inspiration, showing that even in the hardest circumstances, progress and dignity were possible with the right support. Together, they navigated the changes in her life. He continued to provide guidance and assistance, while she took active steps to improve her circumstances. It was a partnership where both learned and grew, not just a story of help, but a story of mutual transformation. Each day brought new challenges, new lessons, and new moments of understanding. They faced these moments together, with patience, respect, and a shared commitment to positive change. One evening, he received a message from a local news outlet that had picked up the viral story. They wanted to share the full narrative, highlighting both his kindness and her resilience. He agreed, but requested that it focus on her journey and the broader message of empathy and support rather than personal recognition. When the story aired, it resonated widely, inspiring viewers to look closer at the lives of those around them and to act with compassion. The response was immediate. Messages poured in from people sharing their own experiences, seeking advice, or offering support. Organizations contacted him for collaboration. While individuals expressed gratitude for highlighting the importance of seeing and helping others, it was a wave of positive energy, all stemming from a simple act of noticing someone in need and responding with humanity. Through it all, she remained grounded, focused on her own growth and the well-being of her family. She continued to work, attend workshops, and pursue her dreams, but now with the confidence that she was supported and valued. Her relationship with him became a symbol of trust, care, and mutual respect. Showing that compassion could bridge gaps and transform lives, he continued to reflect on the journey. The incident on the sidewalk had been a turning point, not just for her, but for him and the community around them. It had taught him that true impact comes from genuine care, consistent attention, and thoughtful action. It had shown him that one moment of awareness could ripple outward, touching lives in ways that were unpredictable yet profound. The neighborhood began to change subtly as well. People became more aware of those struggling around them, noticing the quiet challenges of their neighbors, colleagues, and community members. Acts of kindness multiplied, inspired by the examples set in their midst. What had begun as a personal awakening became a community movement, small but meaningful, showing the power of human connection and empathy. By the end of the month, her life had taken a positive turn. She had a safe place to sleep, a supportive network, and access to resources that allowed her to pursue her goals. He had learned valuable lessons about empathy, responsibility, and the importance of seeing the whole person. And quietly, without fanfare or expectation, they continued to build a life where dignity, trust, and understanding were at the center. Over the next few months, her life began to stabilize in ways she had never imagined possible. She had a safe place to sleep, her family's needs were better managed, and she had access to educational and skill-building opportunities. She no longer carried the constant weight of worry alone. Each day brought small victories, a completed workshop, a solved problem at home, or a moment of rest without guilt. The sense of security she felt allowed her to breathe, to focus on herself and her family, and to imagine a future beyond mere survival. He continued to observe quietly, supporting her growth in ways that were helpful without being intrusive. He learned to ask the right questions, to listen without interrupting, and to provide assistance when necessary. He understood that empowerment meant giving someone the tools to succeed while respecting their autonomy. His approach was patient, deliberate, and respectful, and over time, it became a model for how he interacted with others in his life as well. One afternoon, she approached him with an idea. She wanted to start a small community project to help others who faced struggles similar to hers. She envisioned a space where people could learn skills, share experiences, and receive support without judgment. He listened attentively, proud of her initiative, and offered guidance to help her make it a reality. He provided resources, connected her with the right people, and encouraged her to take the lead. It was a turning point, showing her that she could be not only a recipient of help, but also a provider of hope to others. The project began modestly, with a small group of participants and simple workshops. Yet, it grew steadily, fueled by her dedication and the lessons she had learned about perseverance and resilience. She shared her story openly, not seeking sympathy, but offering inspiration and practical advice. Her experiences resonated with others, many of whom had faced similar challenges. They found guidance, encouragement, and a sense of community through her efforts. Meanwhile, he continued to reflect on the journey that had begun the night he found her on the sidewalk. The experience had transformed his perspective on life, empathy, and responsibility. He realized that his previous understanding of success had been narrow, focused on wealth and status rather than meaningful impact. He now understood that true success was measured not just by what he achieved for himself, but by how he touched the lives of others. Word of their efforts spread quietly at first, and then more widely. Local media covered the story, emphasizing the power of kindness, observation, and support. Social media amplified it, sharing the narrative of resilience and empathy with thousands of viewers. People were inspired by how one simple act of noticing someone in need could lead to a ripple effect of positive change. The story encouraged others to look beyond appearances, to see the struggles of those around them, and to act with genuine care. Despite the attention, he remained humble. He did not seek recognition or praise for himself. His focus was on ensuring that she and her family were supported and that the community project continued to grow. He understood that the real reward was the transformation he witnessed: her confidence, her hope, and the way she inspired others. It was a reminder that meaningful action often occurs quietly, without fanfare, yet its impact can be profound. She continued to grow, balancing her responsibilities at home with the demands of the community project. Her confidence blossomed as she realized her ability to influence positive change. She began mentoring others, sharing practical advice, and encouraging them to pursue opportunities they might not have considered. Her journey from struggle to empowerment became a powerful example of resilience and hope. At home, a relationship evolved naturally. He treated her with respect and dignity, recognizing her contributions and her humanity. She felt valued not just for the work she did, but for who she was. They shared moments of conversation, reflection, and laughter, creating a bond built on trust, care, and mutual understanding. It was no longer about employment or duty. It was about a shared human experience, where both had learned lessons from each other. He also noticed changes in himself. He became more observant, patient, and compassionate in his daily life. He extended these qualities to interactions with friends, colleagues, and community members. The lessons he had learned from her story influenced how he led, how he cared for others, and how he perceived the world around him. The experience had taught him that empathy and action were inseparable, and that true leadership involves seeing and responding to the needs of those often overlooked. The ripple effect of their story continued to grow. People inspired by their journey took action in their own communities, offering support, mentorship, and resources to those in need. The narrative of kindness and resilience spread widely, demonstrating that meaningful change often begins with simple acts of awareness and compassion. Their story became an example of how one encounter, one act of noticing someone in need, could lead to a chain of positive transformation. She herself became a source of inspiration for many. Her resilience, courage, commitment to helping others showcased the power of human determination combined with support and care. She demonstrated that even in the most difficult circumstances, progress and hope were possible with guidance, opportunity, and belief in oneself. Her story encouraged countless others to persevere, to seek help when needed, and to extend help to others in turn. As time passed, they reflected on the journey together. What had started as a moment of vulnerability, her sleeping on a sidewalk, had transformed into a story of growth, connection, and empowerment. They recognized the significance of attention, empathy, and action in creating meaningful change. Both had learned that true impact is measured not just by wealth or authority, but by the ability to see, understand, and support others with dignity and care. The community project continued to expand, reaching more people and offering more opportunities. She took pride in the positive changes she helped facilitate, knowing that her experiences had prepared her to make a real difference. He continued to support her quietly, providing guidance and resources while respecting her leadership. Together, they had created something lasting, a testament to resilience, compassion, and the transformative power of human connection. Their story served as a reminder to everyone who heard it, noticing the struggles of others. Responding with care and empowering people to reach their potential can create profound and lasting change. It was a lesson in humility, empathy, and the simple truth that every human life has value. The journey from that cold sidewalk to a life of dignity, opportunity, and hope demonstrated that even small acts of attention and kindness could lead to extraordinary outcomes through it all. She thrived, her family flourished, and the community benefited from the lessons learned from their journey. He remained a quiet supporter, enriched not by fame or recognition, but by the knowledge that his actions had helped transform a life and inspire many others. Their story ended not with grand gestures, but with everyday acts of care, respect, and empowerment, a story that continued to touch lives and inspire change long after that first night on the sidewalk.